Alright, I want to give my bit on custom builds, overclocking versus OEMs. Dell, Gateway, Apple, you name it. There are now many videos circulating and comments. I've received a lot of PMs regarding, oh, people are saying custom builds suck, or Macs suck, general OEMs like Dell suck, they're cheap, things like this. Overclocking destroys your hardware, so on and so forth. So I want to try to add some perspective to all of this. The computer industry, at least on the retail side of things, has a tremendous amount of demographics, variety of consumers on what they want as far as a computer goes. Everyone has different needs, different likes. Some people like computers with neon lights and spinning things on the damn things that make noise or whatever that I've seen. Some like them very distinct, classic looking. Want them, or form factor. They don't want to have cables. They want it to be able to sit nicely on a desk and perhaps have one cable come out of it. Fact is there's just all kinds of consumers. I, for one, own many Apples and many Windows PCs. Of those Windows PCs, all of them I have custom built myself. I have been custom building my own personal computers, since 1994. So you could say I'm very much into building my own personal computers, but I am also very much into Macs. Macs were the first computers I ever used. Well, an Apple was the first computer I ever used, and then Macs later on. Yes, it is widely known that I have also very many, as I've already stated, Windows PCs. So this causes a conundrum sometimes with the whole Mac versus PC or Windows PC type arguments. There is no doubt of the likes and dislikes that I have. I have sufficient amount of videos explaining all of that. And I find myself really repeating with this video things that I've stated earlier in other videos. One cannot really compare a custom build to an original manufactured PC, whether it be a Dell, Apple, Gateway, you name it. They're two different logistical lines and two very different ideologies. There is the consumer that wants a computer and not have to worry about a dang thing about it. And that's probably most people that I know, that I have dealt with. They want it, they want to buy it, and they want it to work. They want to get their email, they want to surf the web, maybe buy something, Word document, edit a photo, and they don't want to have to worry about bugs, errors, viruses, having to upgrade, you name it. They would love for it to always work fast and do what they want, lickety split, no questions asked. That's most people that I know. There are my close friends that do also build custom PCs. I would say, though, the majority of the people I know do not do that. Does that make myself and my friends, and just to say co-workers that also build their own PCs, somehow dumber, or they just don't the people that are buying a computer just to suit their needs and don't want to have to worry about something, it breaking, whatever, have some sort of better line of thinking than someone would who wants to build their own personal computer. Well, I would say that that kind of ideology, where one wants to delve into understanding more about what they're running on, goes into a tremendous amount of hobbies in life, whether it be cars, cameras, cable. Heck, I know people that make their own PVRs and things versus getting something like a TiVo. There's just many things out there that you'll always have camps where people will go, dude, just buy it and forget about it. And the other person that's really geeky and into it and say, no, did you know you could do this? So, that said, a computer can be a bit trickier in building it. If you don't buy the right RAM, you don't buy the right motherboard, especially the wrong sockets and things like that, you can create a plethora of problems and make it a huge headache. So yes, it is extremely advisable for anyone who wants to build their own personal computer to know a little bit about what they're doing. Sure, technologies and instruction manuals and things have gotten easier than, let's say, 12 years ago. But I still do find people buying the wrong types of RAM or shorting themselves out. It may be able to work, but they're not getting the full potential out of the hardware that they have, so on and so forth. That even get into overclocking, where I get so many PMs about overclocking and what do I buy here and there. The truth of it is that every motherboard has its own set of rules on what it will allow you to do. The different types of Intel chips, different types of AMD chips, and even the Hackintosh forums that I participate in with the old G4s. All of them have their own set of rules because they're all using varied types of technologies and or using the same technologies with different settings, so on and so forth. So there's no one general blanket thing to it. That's why many times when I get asked, I can't really help many people unless you expect me to really have the time to research every PM that I get in and you give me your specs, so on and so forth, and I go out and can tell you the answers. I try to do some. But the bottom line of it is there is no blanket anything regarding to overclocking. So, I digressed a bit, but I want to cover all those topics. I will repeat myself as I have in other videos. A person who overclocks, builds their own, has a very different mindset for what they want their computer to do versus, let's say, somebody just buying a Dell, buying an Apple. Usually. There is no wrong or right answer in what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, because obviously a consumer is going to buy and do what they wish. Hopefully. It's obvious that I have my own arguments in terms of what we're given in terms of technology and where we could be, right? That said, I overclock. And I build my own. For one, I know what I'm doing. And number two, I want to get the most out of the hardware, because since I'm not likely to go out and buy a Sun T2 Ultra Spark and just throw out that much chunk of change to get that many threads that I mean, because obviously the software that I'm running at a retail level isn't even going to be written to run for that. I'm not going to go out and buy an IBM Power 6 chip. I mean, that's a lot of money, typically. So, we live in the AMD Intel world. We're stuck with the x86 architecture. Within that set of rules, you better believe I want to get the maximum performance out of it. If I'm going to have to deal with technologies that have to use micro-ops and decoders and things like that, I'm going to maximize its potential. An OEM, a Dell or a Mac, is not likely to maximize the amount of hardware they put in. They deal with an entirely different logistical chain. They have to sell mass computers, limit the amount of models that they want to support, and have a margin of uptime versus fail time for a consumer base and compete at the same time against their other OEMs out there. That's a lot to handle, and they're certainly not going to get down to that granular detail level. I've seen videos saying, oh, test your ambient temperatures. I mean, oh my goodness gracious, all these things. My Mac runs cooler or my PC runs cooler, please. Macs that run on Intel run on the logistics of this Intel chips, and there is nothing Apple can do about it. They can certainly put in better cooling fans. They can design their cases, and I have always stated the power lines of the Macintosh computer since the G4s when I started have been awesome. I do think that the design of the Macintosh, the Pro lines, I'm not getting into the iMacs and things like that. Those are different form factors for the consumers like my wife. She don't want to have cables out there. She loves the iMac. My parents love the iMac. That's their thing. But I like to get into the computer. And so I'm usually in the Pro line series of Mac. I will always stand by that. They build them damn well. Now, does it bother me that custom build computers have wires hanging things and all that other stuff? They don't look as nice? No, not really. Unless it inhibits proper airflow through the case. A case, above all else, must vent the heat inside out as efficiently as possible. Purpose of the case. And keeping it clean internally. I hear comments about shortening lifespans of hardware via overclocking. I guarantee you don't dust out your computer and you don't do proper maintenance on it, you're going to shorten the life of your computer. And that goes whether you have a Dell or a custom build. So, I do my best in my custom builds to make them look clean inside and have proper airflow, and I clean them regularly. I will say that a liquid cooled, of which I have on I have two, but I don't run the other one so much anymore. Let's just say, just for purposes, my liquid cooled machines don't intake as much dust. The ones that I have completely encapsulated, I don't need to really vent anything else out except exhausting out. I hardly have to dust really. My Mac Pro, I've had to dust. My G5, I've had to dust. Other G4s I've had to dust out. My regular air-cooled custom builds, yep, I have to dust out. Liquid cools, no. You can, if you have intake, if you're going to be doing it for your video cards, or if you're intaking air into the computer and you don't have some sort of filtration, you're going to get dust. Let's just put it that way. So that is the one that I digressed again, but I'm going to overclock because I'm going to maximize the amount of power I'm going to get with the architecture and the rule set that I've been given. I'm going to build my own because I want to control every darn component that I can. Apple's, I own Macs because they are pretty much the only pretty much the only OEM that I trust. I have and do use Dells and HPs at work. They run. But yes, they don't have the amount of detail that Macs do put into a lot of their design and workmanship. Okay? But that really deteriorates when you get into the x86 architecture. When Macs adopted Intel, they are on the same logistical architectural limitations as any other Windows running hardware. Do they use quality parts? Of course they do. But they still do use Intels. And their life expectancy is going to be the same as any other Intel that goes out there. Now, I've heard things like overclocking reduces the life expectancy. Let's put it this way. If you up your voltage, let's say by 5 points, if your motherboard does it and you turn it on, you're probably going to immediately shorten the life of that CPU. But overclocking means a lot of things. You can improve the timing of your RAM. You can improve the timing of your motherboard, the bus speeds on the motherboard, like North Bridge, South Bridge type stuff. Now that's kind of going away since memory controllers are being put on the actual CPU now with the i7s and things, but there are controllers that you can mess with and overclock. It doesn't necessarily mean the CPU, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to shorten the life of it either. It depends really on what you're doing and how well you're taking care of it. You could shorten the lifespan of a normal non-overclocked computer just by not taking care of it, not dusting it out, so on and so forth. Not even giving it a power surge. There's just, I mean, it's power surge protector. There's many things you can do just without overclocking or shorten the life of your computer without proper care. So when one overclocks, I hope they take proper care in giving it sufficient cooling. Okay? You give it sufficient cooling, there might be within the semiconductor material itself some sort of reduced life expectancy. The odds of you challenging that very thing in the amount of years it would take is insignificant. You want to run your computer for, what, 20, 30 years and actually find out the deterioration levels? Please be my guest. By that time, software changes. We're going to multi-thread. I mean, technology is rapid. And we're going to worry about 30 years versus 27, or let's just shorten it by 10 years versus 9. Okay? So, then there's the liquid-cooled statements. Even G5s use liquid-cooled. Some of those liquid-cooled units, they had manufacturer defects. There are Macs, yes, that are shipped and have had driver failures. I know of this because I've been there, the tech shops that have seen like the ATI cards going wrong, whatever. It does happen. Nobody can control to a 100% degree level of these products coming out. Even CPUs. I mean, there's sometimes even overclockers will sand down the outer layer to get closer to the die to get the heat sinks properly lined up to vent the most heat, that you'll find uneven levels on there. I mean, imperfections exist within memory. There's so many imperfections. You don't even want to know how many actual imperfections go on and recalculations and misses that occur inside the computer that none of you will ever know of until you study at that level of computing. Okay? Imperfections exist everywhere on up the chain. Is there a marginal difference? I'm sure there is. But the failure rate of liquid-cooled to air-cooled, no. The bearings in your fan are going to go out, and your CPU can go right then and there without proper ventilation. I've never seen a computer liquid-cooled, just the hose breaks and boom, there it is. Has it happened? Maybe somewhere out there. I'm not going to be the definitive answer to say it. But is it something dumb to do? No, because water removes heat faster from the CPU than air could ever hope to. So, is it dumb to have a custom built computer? No. It would be dumb to me to say, if one is presenting that argument. Okay? If you're just a normal consumer, then no one's dumb or whatever. But if one is a consumer that presents an argument to another, saying that they're dumb for being custom builders. And they themselves are not then going to take advantage and maximize the amount of performance out of their computer, then I would say that's a fallacious argument. If you're a Linux user, a Windows user, or an OS X user, it would behoove you that the hardware that it is running on, that you could maximize the hardware's potential to therefore allow the operating system to try to maximize its potential. That would only make sense. Of course, there's other variables of what we can afford and what we can do and with what knowledge we have. So I hope that it puts this arguments to rest. I think this is the third video where I am stating you do not compare custom builds to OEMs. Two different logistical lines, usually two very different types of consumers. It's just a ridiculous, fallacious argument to go back and forth on it. I see all these challenges. Oh, you do this and do this, compare. Nonsense. In all truth to things, though, if an OEM user really wanted to compare, you're actually stating, compare my machine, of which I do have limitation by the vendor that I purchased and the hardware that I have, unless you want to gut the machine and leave the case in, but then it's not going to be the original machine itself. And then stating that to somebody who has a plethora of choices and hardware combinations to maximize the amount of power coming out via hardware. Hey, if you want to do that, be my guest. Will you get anywhere? No. That is almost an impossibility, given that at a hardware level only, the logistical limitation that is inherent to an OEM will outperform the amount of and plethora of choices that and configurations that one can do in a custom build. It just doesn't make sense. So I, for one, who am big and like my behind the bit videos that always preach where we are but where we could be, that is why I build, that is why I overclock, and why I liquid cool. Sure, I could be here, but why be here when I could be here? Thanks for watching.